If I had to start over in 2025 from scratch, like a total reset, back to zero, it would feel a lot like what happened to me in 2017. Back then, I went from doing really well financially to complete broke overnight. Our only source of income disappeared like a Thanos snap, just like that, vaporized. My sister Nancy and I were still in the fashion business back then, and let me tell you, it felt like the rug got ripped right out from under us. We had no plan B, just a little backup cash, but no real safety net to fall back on. So if I had to start all over again today, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I do in 2025 to rebuild from scratch and become richy rich. There's never been a time in human history when it's been easier for ordinary people to create extraordinary wealth. I'm not talking about theory, I'm talking about what we lived. Nan and I went from starting from scratch after the collapse of our fashion business, resetting to zero, to building a $400 million real estate portfolio in just a few years. And no, we didn't start with millions of dollars. We started with leverage. Now, I know that when I say the average people like us, some of you feel some resistance rise up. You hear ordinary person and you say, that can't be me. But I want you to hear me clearly. I'm not special. I didn't have wealthy connections. I really didn't pay attention in school. I didn't have a secret talent. I wasn't born with the gift of raising millions of dollars or starting a fund. In fact, if you look at my life from the outside back then, you wouldn't have seen anything that screamed success. When I graduated from high school with a 2-point-something GPA, the only thing I got recognized for was being the captain of the varsity basketball team. Yeah, you heard that right. Yes, I'm a hooper. And even then, nobody was betting on me. No one did. Nobody said, that girl's gonna build a $400 million empire. So what would I do? Well, let's start with what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't be in fashion, not because people can't be successful in it, but because the reality is harsh. You are constantly replaceable. There's always cheaper labor and you end up fighting over pennies. There's a ceiling in that industry and income isn't based on your talent or value you bring. It's determined by who's willing to charge the lowest price and undercut you. And that just wasn't the kind of game I wanted to play. Next, you see, most people think real estate investing is about finding the perfect property, getting the best interest rates, or having a huge down payment. That's not real estate investing. That's real estate gambling. They think they can afford to take their time, moving like a slow dripping molasses, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. To illustrate this, let me ask you a simple question. If you earn $1 million, are you considered rich? Was the answer yes? Well, the answer is it depends. What does it depend on? If you made that $1 million and it took you 40 years, you're not rich. You earn $25,000 a year. If you made $1 million and it took you 1 year, then you're quite wealthy. You earn 40 times more than the person who took 40 years to earn that million. You're not Elon Musk rich, but you're doing fine. But if you made $1 million in a day, you're talking about a completely different scale. And that's why wealth has a need for speed. There's no point in earning the same dollar amount in 40 years when you can earn that in a year or less. So as I illustrate what I can do if I had to start over from zero today, keep that in the back of your mind. Wealth has a need for speed. But first, let me tell you why most people never make it past their first property, if they even get that far. It's because what I call the 30-year equity trap hamster wheel. I know this because I was trapped in it myself. You see, at that time, we had really good active income from our fashion business. And so the idea of just dumping cash into a rental property seemed totally perfectly fine, even logical. We were extremely green to the investing world. It was like the blind following even blinder person.
It's like the blind leading the blind.
We saw someone else doing this and we thought we should do the same. And maybe you can relate to this. If any one of you have started making good money for the first time in your life, you may have experienced something similar to us. There's actually a psychological principle called the wealth effect. When people feel wealthier, they spend more freely, even if that wealth isn't permanent or sustainable. But there's another principle at play here too, what psychologists call mental accounting. We started treating our fashion business income and our real estate investment as completely separate buckets of money. We thought it wasn't a big deal. I'll make more money back. I'm just putting money into a property, not realizing that this becomes a deadly trap for your finances. The truth is, money is money, whether it comes from your business, your job, or your investments. But when you're flush with cash from one source, our brain tricks you into thinking you can afford to be careless with money in other areas. Because here's what I didn't realize at the time. I had been programmed. We've all been culturally programmed to believe that real estate investing means buying a house, signing on that beautiful 30-year payment plan to the bank, and praying to the real estate gods that someone will pay more for your house 3 decades from now than you paid for today. They call it building equity, but really what you're building is the bank's equity while you make their mortgage payments for 30 years. They've convinced you that being in debt for 3 decades is somehow an investment strategy. That's not investing, that's speculation. You're literally betting that someone else will pay more for your property 30 years from now than you pay today while you're bleeding cash every single month, paying interest to the bank. All the while, you're not realizing the true cost of ownership will cost you at least 300% more than your home purchase price when you factor in things like interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and opportunity costs. I used to think the same way, and I thought good debt meant I can afford monthly payment. I thought appreciation Appreciation was my strategy. I was basically a broke person with good credit score, just like the bank trained me to be. And this all came to a head when we lost our main client and lost 95% of our income overnight. That active income void really highlights the fact that we had dumped a lot of money into a property that was not serving us in any way. We were paying above our mortgage into a property every single month, all the while our tenant was paying less than our mortgage payment. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but once you lose your only source of income, it almost feels like you've been deprived of oxygen and grasping for air. At that moment, I just kept thinking, almost in a panic, what now? What are we gonna do to survive this? It's funny, when money came easy, it also left just as easily. But when you don't have money, it feels like it's incredibly hard to get it back. Every bill becomes a mountain. Every expense feels like a weight crushing down on you. You start questioning every financial decision you ever made, wondering how you could have been so blind to the trap that you've built yourself. That property that we bought as an investment became a monthly reminder of our financial ignorance, a concrete monument to everything we did wrong. I understand now that's negative cash flow, but at that time I thought it was a smart strategy. But what made it even more painful was when we calculate the real numbers. Even if you get 3% annual appreciation over 30 years, that's only 143% total increase. So if you put $100,000 into a rental property that bought you a $400,000 home and it appreciates to $572,000, you made $172,000 profit, but you waited 30 years for it. Now, $172,000 is not a little bit of money, definitely not, but it's definitely not enough money to live off of. When you realize how many of these properties you need and how long you have to wait for any of them to actually bear fruit, you'll run into a scenario that makes it completely illogical. Let me show you the math. Right now, if you earn six figures, you need anywhere between $3 to $5 million for retirement. Let's give $3 million as our example. At $172,000 profit for a property, you'll need 17 of those properties. And if you had to put down $100,000 for each property, that means you need to come up with $1.7 million in cash that you're going to be able to sink into these properties and hold for 30 years. Oh, and not mentioning that you have to sign on to all these loans as well. That's not logical. That's a mathematical impossibility for a lot of us. That's what happens when math isn't mathing. So let me write this down. Level 1 equals to $172,000 in 30 years, or $5,733 per year. We'll come back to this later. But as I started feeling despair and hopelessness about my single family rental investments, I discovered something that changed everything. You don't make money when you sell. In fact, you don't even make money when you buy. You actually make money when you operate the property correctly. And that's when I realized I needed to completely rebuild my foundation, which brings us to level 2. See, once you break free from the programming, you realize you need to start over. You need to rebuild your real foundation. And the foundation isn't what most people think it is. Level 2 is where most people want to skip ahead, but this is where the real wealth is built. This is about building systems, not just buying properties. Within this foundation, there are several elements. First, you need education, but not the kind of education they're selling you. Don't go get your real estate license to become a real estate agent, because here's the key. You're not learning to become an employee in real estate. You're learning to become an owner. The best way to learn this is to start investing on the passive side into these deals. Just like for us, we always start with larger investment properties, 200 to 300 unit apartments, because this is where the real money can be made. It's higher quality, much more scalable. We're not going in to waste our time trying to make $100 cash flow on a duplex somewhere in the middle of America. Or worse yet, negative cash flowing properties like in level 1. If you want true wealth, that's not what you're going to be doing, right? It's like wanting to fly to the moon, but using a paper airplane. It's not going to get you very far. When we first got started in multifamily apartments, people said, how did you go from $0 in multifamily to over $400 million in real estate in just 6 years? It didn't happen because we started studying and buying duplexes. That would have taken us decades, and we wouldn't have gotten to this point in such a short period of time. What we did was learn strategically. I'm not going to sugarcoat this part. It took us a few years of really honing in, but we're not talking about learning the minutia. We're not trying to learn to become employees in this business. We're learning this on the level of investors, large scale investments. That's why when we got started, we chose to do passive investing first. Not only were we able to learn from experienced operators, their mindset, their investment criteria, what they chose to do with these properties, but we also had the insight into the lay of the land, the sub-market they're looking at, why they love the area, and why they didn't love others. And we didn't have to front all the money. We were a small investor in a larger pool. Here's the thing that most people forget. While these are passive investments, you don't have to be passive about asking questions. Most general partners, the good ones at least, actually welcome good questions. It helps them sharpen their ability to communicate, and all they care about is protecting their investors' money while properly communicating. There are a ton of resources online. Our YouTube channel is one of them where you can learn about multifamily investing. What I find in today's age is not the lack of resources. It's the understanding of the sequence of what you should be learning. And that's why we always emphasize just-in-time learning. Again, you're not learning to become an employee, so you don't need to learn about contract laws, tenant rights, tenant laws, or how to even evict a tenant. Those things are not important to you. That's not your job. Hire someone who knows how to do those things. things. Today, if you ask me what's our procedure to evict someone, I would have absolutely no clue. But if you ask how our property is doing financially, what's our cash position, what's our projected sale price, or what's our business plan, I can tell you those easily because that's my focus. The second element, you need to pick your lane and become an expert. We chose to invest in multifamily because people always need a place to live. You might choose single family, commercial, mobile home parks, it doesn't matter. Just pick one and become the best at it. Now, inside of these commercial assets, there are subsets. For example, in multifamily real estate, there are 5 buckets of responsibilities. Number 1 is sourcing the deals. Number 2 is broker and vendor relationships. Number 3 is asset management. Number 4 is capital raising. And number 5 is being the balance sheet person. Here's what's crucial. When you first get started, learn one skill set and become an expert at it. Don't try to manage all these different ones at the same time. Really, it's impossible and you'll never get anywhere. All you'll get is frustration. For us, when we started, we focused on our ability to raise capital as our primary function. Now, with any of these purchases, you need to do more than just raise capital, but that can be your primary role. You can then complement that with investor relations, reviewing financials, or whatever else makes sense to you. This is also another thing that's really important. Do you like it? Do you like doing that task, taking on that responsibility? Does it come naturally to you? Don't try to be a deal sourcer running financial models if Excel makes you dizzy. Don't try to be a relationship person with brokers when you're an introvert who would rather stare at a screen all day. Find the skill set that fits what you like to do because that's the only way you can stick with it long enough to become truly excellent at it. When we first got started and before we found our true calling as capital raisers, we also tried to force a square peg into a round hole. We thought, man, we need to start sourcing these deals. Even though we live in Los Angeles, we wanted to buy in Dallas. So we felt like, let's start underwriting apartments in Dallas. And lo and behold, we got nowhere with it. We submitted offers, 15 properties over 6 months. The brokers didn't take us seriously. They didn't know us and we didn't know them. And we couldn't just fly out there to meet with them all the time. With that, we didn't win one single deal. We've wasted a lot of money, over $10,000 in travel and analysis costs with 0 results. Until we flipped everything and focused on becoming capital raisers and developing the investor relationship part of the business, that's when everything changed for us. Within 90 days of focusing on our strengths, we raised almost $4 million for our first deal. Fast forward to today, now that we've gained mastery over all 4 buckets, because the 5th one is really just about your financial situation, i.e. your balance sheet. We are much more independent because we don't rely on others to meet all our needs. But it all started with mastering one skill first and gradually expanding our capabilities over time. Third element, you start building cash flow immediately. You should always expect net positive cash flow on the property. If you don't have immediate cash flow, then achieving it must be critically included as part of your business plan. Perhaps you're taking over a property that needs some management improvements to increase occupancy and make it cash flow positive, etc. That's fine if you're experienced or you're parting with someone who's done it before and you have a clear, simple plan to execute so that it becomes cash flow positive. Today, when we buy properties, we focus on buying A-class multifamily apartments. Those are newer properties in excellent neighborhoods. Think of neighborhoods that have at least a median income of $100,000 per household or more, and have these properties being built in the mid-2000s or newer. Some people have this idea of, hey, I'm gonna flip multifamily apartments, but guys, we're buying $70 to $80 million apartments that can't be flipped just like a HGTV single family home. The scale and complexity are completely different. For us, our double red flag is when a new person says, I'm investing in an apartment building that has 50% occupancy. Because if you think about it, 50% occupancy on a 300 unit apartment means 150 vacant units. That's 150 units that you have to lease up. Plus, you probably have to do major renovations to each one of those. We're talking millions of dollars in renovation costs and 12 to 18 months of negative cash flow while you're trying to fill that building. Think about it, 150 units at $2,000 per month rent means you're missing $300,000 in monthly income while spending potentially $3 to $5 million on renovation. Add that all together, that's about $8 to $10 million in a hole that you have to climb out of before you even start making money. The best way to solve this is to always buy properties that, even with your newer purchase price and loan that you're taking on, will have a net positive cash flow from day one. If not, then again, you have to have a very clear executable plan to make it there fast. So let's talk about the math at level 2. Remember, at level 1, we calculate $172,000 profit over 30 years, which equates to $5,733 per year. At level 2, here's what the math actually looks like. Let's say you start out investing that same $100,000, but this time as a passive investor in a multifamily deal, maybe $50,000 in 2 different properties. These A-class properties typically generate 8% annual cash flow. Plus, when you sell in 5 years, you get additional profits from the appreciation. Here's the full math. Your $100,000 investment generates $8,000 per year in cash flow distribution, which equals $40,000 per 5 years. When the property sells in 5 years, you get your original $100,000 back, plus additional $60,000 in profit from the sales proceeds. So over 5 years, you made $40,000 in cash flow plus $60,000 in sale proceeds in this example. That's a total return of $100,000 over 5 years on your $100,000 investment, a 100% total return. Average out, that's $20,000 per year or 20% average annual returns when you include both the sales proceeds and the cash flow. But here's where it gets really exciting. As you develop your expertise, let's say in sourcing a deal like many successful operators do, you start earning fees. The general partnership team typically earn 1 to 2% of the total deal size in acquisition fees. So on a $25 million deal, that's anywhere between $250,000 to $500,000 in acquisition fees split amongst the team. So in this example, let's assume that you earn 1% acquisition fee. As one of the 5 partners who sourced the deal, you share in the $250,000 acquisition fee, the 1% of the purchase price. That equals to $50,000 per deal for you. Now, in most multifamily deals, the ownership structure is typically split 80% to the limited partners, the passive investors who put money in the deal, and 20% goes to the general partners, the active general partners who find the deals, who manages it and operates the deal. Therefore, as general partners, you get about 4%, which is 20% ownership, right? Divided by 5 partners. This means you get 4% of the annual cash flow and 4% of the sale proceeds. So on a $25 million property that generates $2 million in annual cash flow, your 4% share equals to $80,000 per year in cash flow. And for example, when the property sells for $35 million after 5 years of holding it with $10 million in total profit, your 4% share equals $400,000 in additional sales proceeds profit. So let's be conservative and say that you source 1 deal per year. Over 5 years, you earn $50,000 in acquisition fees plus $100,000 from your passive investments. That's the $20,000 times 5 years plus $400,000 from your general partnership cash flow, $80,000 times 5 years plus $400,000 from your GP sales proceeds. That's $950,000 in total 5 years. So level 2 equals $950,000 total returns over 5 years versus level 1's $172,000 total return over 30 years. That means level 2 generates 5.5 times more total wealth in 1/6 of the time. Let that sink in. Breaking it down annually, level 2 averages $190,000 per year versus level 1, which was only $5,733 per year. That's 33 times more annual income. So let's write this down. Level 2, $950,000 earned in 5 years, $190,000 per year. But here's the beautiful part. This $950,000 over 5 years isn't just income. It's your foundation for level 3 because now you have capital to invest, proven expertise, and a network of operators who trust you. That's when the real wealth multiplication begins. The difference between level 2 and level 3 is the difference between making good money and building generational wealth. Level 3 is where you go from hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. But here's what separates level 2 from level 3. At level 2, you're still trading your time for money. You're better educated, but not fully a top-tier real estate investor. Level 3 is where you become a real estate wealth creator. The difference between level 2 and level 3 is the difference between having a job in real estate and having real estate work for you. And that transition happens when you master one thing. Level 3 is where you stop being the real estate investor and start being the real estate entrepreneur. And this is where you go from thousands to millions. The secret is you don't buy real estate. You create it and control it with other people's money. Here's what we actually do, and this is what separates millionaires from people who stay broke with real estate. We use other people's money to buy already good assets that through our operational excellence become great assets. While everyone else is fighting over distressed properties that ironically end up being overpriced when you factor in all the work it needs, we buy properties that don't need major work. The ones with 90% occupancy, a Class A property with very little deferred maintenance required that have strong income projections. What people tend to forget is that if you invest in the right property in the right area organically, you're already going to have rent increases built in because the demand for the property is going to be higher than the supply. So forced appreciation doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go in and do heavy lifting or major renovation. Sometimes just operational excellence is what's required. Forced appreciation can happen organically or it can happen on a macro level regardless of your individual efforts. So when you are in the right market with the right property and operating it correctly, the market does a heavy lifting for you and that makes everything easier. Here's a real example. We bought a property in Northwest Arkansas a couple years ago. This was an excellent A+ class property built in 2021. The purchase price was $77 million. And at the time when we purchased the property, the year-over-year organic rent growth was around 12%. Even now during the slow period, rent growth is still substantially stronger than other areas. And this is with us doing nothing in terms of renovations or heavy lifting. The location, the property, and the operation itself drives the demand. Fast forward to 2025, we see a lot of competition coming online. Newer buildings being built left and right. But here's what's interesting. They're still struggling to lease up completely, meaning they still have massive vacancy in their apartments. Why are they struggling? There are several factors that contribute to this. Number one is location. Just because we're in the same submarket doesn't mean we're in the exact same location. We were extremely selective with our purchase and we chose the property that was in the very epicenter, the heart of the best part of Northwest Arkansas. Moreover, because our property was built in 2021 with better interest rate terms, better loan terms, better labor costs, better material costs than in the reality of 2023, 24, even 25, our property has so many more amenities, larger units, higher ceilings, all the features features that the newer apartments coming on today cannot afford to include. Also, our management team is considered top tier in the market. Our ability to engage, attract, and retain residents is superior to other in the submarket. And we can only afford to pay more for our property management team because we make more from the apartments. That's why we can do this and our competitors can't. Those are some of the reasons why the property has sustained value and continue to cash flow. Not only because we are managing the operations excellently, but the area and the property itself is driving up the organic demand. Get to the scaling strategy. Number 2, this reminds me of how I used to go everywhere with my dad. And when I was a little kid, I would go to meetings with him, with his clients, and I always tag along to this because I thought it was fun. And on one of these meetings in one of these offices, I remember distinctly that I love going to this office because he had this amazing toy on his desk. You see, Steve's desk had this perpetual ball. It's like these silver balls on a cable. You may have seen it before. And basically, it's like when one silver ball gets hit with impact, all the balls are connected on a chain and the other side moves, right? So the ball moves like this. So when you hit the ball, it clicks back and forth on the ends and keeps doing this. And it doesn't stop. And this is kind of like the next strategy. It keeps things in perpetual motion. But instead of desk toy, it's your money. And how we get there is what we call infinite return strategy. Here's how it works. Let's say we buy that same $25 million property. We put down $5 million in equity from our investors and get $20 million in loan. Over 2 to 3 years, we improve the operations, increase rents, and boost the property's value to $35 million. Same as level 2. Now, instead of selling it, we can refinance it at the new value and pull out $28 million, enough to pay off the original loan and return $5 million to our investors in profits. But here's the magic. We still own the property. It's still generating cash flow, but now we have very little equity tied up in it. And that's the infinite return. At some point, our entire principal will be out of the deal, but we will still getting cash flow out of the property and also ability to refinance over and over again. Better yet, this cash out refinancing comes to completely tax-free courtesy of Uncle Sam. Since they consider this debt, we don't get taxed on debt, yet you're free to use it as you wish. This is one of the few times in life where you truly profit with zero taxation. You're literally getting paid millions of dollars and the government say, don't worry about it. It's on us, no tax due. And guess why we call this infinite return? Well, refinancing can keep happening over and over again. As the value of the property continues to increase, rent also increases. The tenants will continue to pay down your mortgage while you reap the financial rewards from the upside the property's income generates. It's a cycle that can repeat virtually indefinitely, hence infinite returns. This happens until we decide to sell the property, but at that point, all the investors are going to be well taken care of. This strategy allows us to scale exponentially because we're not limited by our own capital. Our investors get their money back to invest in the next deals. We keep building a portfolio of cash flowing assets. It's like having your cake and eating it too, except the cake keeps making you more money forever. When you can do this repeatedly, you're not just building wealth, you're building a money printing machine that compounds over time. Okay, here's the fun part now. Let's break down level 3 math. This is where the real wealth multiplication happens. We're going to use the same $25 million property scenario, but this time we only have 2 partners instead of 5, because at this level, you have the experience and the track record to command a larger ownership stake in the deal. At level 3, the ownership structure changes. So instead of 20% ownership split among 5 partners, now the 20% split is now amongst just 2 partners. That means that you now personally own 10% instead of 4% of the deal. As one of 2 partners, your share of the $250,000 acquisition fee now becomes $125,000 per deal. Plus you get 10% ownership, which means 10% of the cash flow and 10% of all refinancing proceeds. We're assuming a 5% cap rate throughout this example, which is typical of A-class multifamily properties in strong markets. So this means the property generates around $2 million in annual net operating income on $25 million purchase price. And in this example, the value will continue to be based on the 5% cap rate as income grows. Here's where it gets exciting. In this example, instead of selling the property after 5 years, like in level 2, at level 3, you keep refinancing every 5 years, holding for 30 years. Let's see what you personally make. Your annual cash flow, 10% of $2 million equal $200,000 per year. Your 5-year total cash flow, $1 million. Your refinance proceed, property value is $35 million, and then I grew from 1.75 divided by 5. Refinancing is at $28 million. Your 10% share of $8 million exceeds $800,000. Okay, now that's amazing, right? But let's go to the next cycle. Property now is worth $35 million. Your NOI increases to $2.45 million. Your annual cash flow is now $250,000 per year. Your 5-year total cash flow is $1.25 million. Your refinance proceeds, the property is now worth $45 million. NOI is 2.5 divided by 5% cap rate. Your 10% share now exceeds $1.4 million. Better yet, we're not going to stop here. Let's go to the next cycle. In the next cycle, the third cycle, your cash flow is now $312,500 per year. That equals to $1.562 million. Your 5-year total cash flow is now $1,562,500. Your refinance proceeds is now $1.9 million. Next cycle, your annual cash flow is now $390,000 per year. In 5 years, that total cash flow is $1.95 million. Your refinance proceeds, check this out, it now exceeds $2.7 million. million. Okay, let's go to cycle 5. So this is between year 21 to year 25. Your annual cash flow now is $487,500 per year. In 5 years, that total cash flow comes out to $2,437,500. Your refinance proceed, check this out. So now after all these years, the property is now worth even more. Your NOI is $6.65 million divided by 5% cap rate, that equals to $133 million. So now of course your 10% share will exceed $3.8 million. What? Okay, cycle 6, year 26 to year 30. Your annual cash flow is now $609,000 per year. So 5 years, that equals to $3.045 million. Okay, this time we're gonna sell. After 30 years, we're done with refinancing. In this example, the final sale proceeds, the property now is worth $186 million, NOI is $9.3 million divided 5% cap rate. Your 10% share after paying off all the debt is $5.2 million. I know that's a lot of number, but trust me, that's just generational wealth. That's just wealth on steroids. That's why wealth has a need for speed. So over a 30-year career, from one deal, you receive personally acquisition fee of $125,000. Your total cash flow is $11.245 million. Your total refinancing proceeds $10,600,000. Your final sale proceeds $5.2 million. Your grand total $27,170,000. I know, right? It's crazy. You're personally making $27,170,000 over 30 years versus level 1 investor making $172,000 over 30 years. That means you generate 158 times more personal wealth than level 1 in the same time period. Breaking it down annually, you're personally averaging over $900,000 per year versus level 1, which is $5,733 per year. Again, that's 158 times more in annual income. So level 3, $27,170,000 in total earning in 30 years and an average annual return of over $900,000 per year. I don't know about you, but that's a nice number. That's more of the kind of number I like. That's the math that is mathing. But here's the most exciting part. This comes from just one deal. At level 3, you're typically doing multiple deals. If you just do 3 deals per year over your career, you're looking at over $81 million in the worst of scenarios. If you just do 3 deals like this over your entire career, you're looking at over $81 million in your personal returns. And let me pause here for a moment. I know the amount of wealth I'm sharing seems massive, and it is, of course, but it's a completely plausible scenario. These aren't fantasy numbers pulled from thin air. This is actual math based on real market conditions, real cap rates, and real deal structures that we and thousands of other operators use every single day. Now, I can't guarantee that every deal will have this outcome because that involves so many factors beyond my control, your control, or the economy's control. But are there people who've gained massive wealth fast this way? The answer is plenty. We've seen it happen over and over again with operators who understand the system and execute it properly. This is why level 3 is called generational wealth. You're not just making money, you're creating a financial legacy that can support your family for generations. And remember, much of this comes tax-free through refinancing. The most important part, level 3 takes the same 30 years as level 1, but you generate 158 times more personal wealth. Same time investment, completely different outcome. If we're fortunate enough to live a vibrant and healthy life for the next 30 years, and here's the thing, those 30 years are going to happen with or without you taking action. Time doesn't wait for your permission. So if you choose to go down the path of level 3, the next 30 years could be the most financially rewarding and fulfilling years of your life. So let me ask you this, which level are you operating at right now? Level 1, still strapped in the programming. Thinking appreciation is your strategy, bleeding money every month to the bank. Level 2, building your foundation, getting educated, starting to generate cash flow, but still trading time for money. Or level 3, using other people's money to buy and create assets that generate passive income and build generational wealth. Here's what I want you to understand. Real estate isn't just about buying properties. It's about understanding money, understanding leverage, understanding how wealth is really created. The question is whether you can do this. The question is, are you going to keep doing what broke people do? Or are you just going to start doing what millionaires do? If you're serious about moving from level 1 to level 3, if you want to learn the strategies we use to go from 0 to millions, then you need to start with breaking your programming and building the right foundation. Remember, you weren't born with any limiting beliefs about money or real estate. Someone taught you those beliefs. Today, you can choose to learn new ones and move to the next level. If I had to start over from scratch, I wouldn't panic. I'd execute a plan. And if you're starting from 0 in real estate, this is exactly what I do. Apply them, work them, and watch how fast things can shift in your favor, just like they did for me. And listen, if you're already ready to go big, if you're ready to buy your first $10 million apartment without using your own money, then I'll see you in the next video.